What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by BetMGM. This is the weekend college basketball betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as they will each and every Thursday night throughout the end of the season, are my BBOC co-hosts, Mike Calabrese, and we have the return of the one and only Mr. Mike Randall. Randall, welcome back, brother. It's good to have you back here.
Guys, it's a pleasure, Stuckey. Great to be here again. Last time we were cutting it down with Virginia, making it all the way to the finals, my friend. So let's have some fun and do it again. Great to be back with you guys.
Yeah, we're now going to be full blast college basketball. The guys from the three-man weave have been holding down the fort with their Wednesday episodes, which will also continue throughout the end of the season. Myself, Mike Calabrese, and a new member of the team, Greg Waddell, will have Monday episodes as well. But with this team, with this crew, we'll do this trio, just like we've done the past couple of years. We will, we'll kind of recap the week, some high-level takeaways. We'll always have a rant or two in there as well. Maybe depending on what's going on in the college basketball world, we'll have a unique topic or two. But then we'll get into weekend rapid fire. So we'll just go around the board and just go around one by one, give out some plays that we have our eyes out on, obviously knowing that lines aren't going to be out at the time. And we'll cover the whole weekend. So you could mention anything that's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And then we will have our futures roundtable, where each Thursday night we'll all come to the podcast with a future, make our case, and then each of us will vote on which one we choose. And if they all get one vote, sorry, I break the tie. I guess it's seniority. But whichever one gets two votes, that's the one we'll add to our portfolio. I will mention that it doesn't have to be, most of them will be national title futures the way that they work, but they don't have to be. It could be a Final Four future, could be a conference title future. We'll try to get a really strong portfolio of, maybe a couple long shots, and then teams that we, they're up closer to the top of the board. We do have a lot to live up to because we got UConn last year at 25-1 was part of our, I think, final 8 that we had, which is right around the number of futures that we'll have this season. So hopefully we can go back to back. But let's kind of, for people that haven't been paying attention to college basketball, kind of been wrapped up with football, we'll do a couple high-level items here to kick things off. You can mention one team, two, wherever you want to go with this, but let's start with the positive and go with most surprising teams in a good way to you. So go, spin this however you want. Randall, I'll throw it to you first. What do you got?
Yeah, let's start with the BYU Cougars here. Shame on me, guys, for not giving Mark Pope more credit. Moved to the Big 12, not as athletic. They're going to get crushed. I was way wrong on that. They're coming off a season. They were 19-15. They were swept by Santa Clara. They were just 7-9 in the WCC. Pope proves again why he's one of the best coaches in college basketball. They are 12-1, and their only loss is a rivalry loss to Utah. They're going to drill Cincinnati at home on Saturday. Ken Pom has them losing by 1 at Baylor. They make threes, third in the nation at defending the three-pointer. Great on the boards, especially defensive boards. 5th season for Mark Pope. Watch out for the BYU Cougars. They are a legitimate issue in the Big 12. They were picked, guys, to finish 13th out of 14 teams in the preseason poll. Play that Cougar song, Matt. This team is for real.
Yeah, and you have Traore, who I think he might be back soon. I think I heard that he was practicing, who has only played, I think, 5 or 6 games. And yeah, this team, it's really interesting. I do not think they're going to be this good. They're analytical darlings too, because they've blown out teams, which you have to give, they haven't had an easy schedule per se. I mean, they're like, I guess I would say overall they've had an easy schedule, but they played some teams that, are power conference teams, and they just handled teams. I mean, they beat Arizona State by 40. They beat Evansville by 40. So they were blowing out teams, which lends itself to one of the reasons they're in the top 5 in KenPom. But the most interesting part about college basketball to me is just you have these teams, and I agree with you, Mark Pope, hell of a coach, but You go into the portal, you could have teams that are completely brand new or just 3 new key additions. Sometimes it all works and sometimes it doesn't, but when it all works, you can have a team that just shattered what your expectations were. Calabrese, where do you want to go with a positive spin on one or two most surprising teams to you so far this season?
Well, just to piggyback, as BYU obviously was the top choice for the most surprising teams, because I agree, I had tempered expectations off of a 19 and 15 season, and they join Arizona and Purdue as the only schools that are top 10 in both offensive and defensive adjusted efficiency, according to Ken Pom, which is outrageous. Jackson Robinson, too, has finally blossomed. He was a 4-star kid, didn't work at A&M, didn't work at Arkansas, and now he's flirting with a 90, 50, 40 season. And then when you watch them play, too, it's just like a beautiful brand of basketball. They do that like zoom action at the top of the key where they, dive towards the hoop, and they end up getting so many open looks at 2, which is why they're 7th nationally in 2-point shooting percentage. So it's not just one of those where they're running hot and they're making all their threes and the bottom's going to fall out. Like, they can score in lots of different ways, and I think that's why it's exciting. And what Mike just brought up too, I think now is the time to grab them in the market because they're still at 40-1 to win the national title, their 3rd seed in bracket matrix, but they got Baylor, Iowa State, and Texas Tech all coming in the next 3 weeks. If they look that good and then they play Houston and either they beat them or they give them a good 40 minutes, you're going to see that number plummet. So now I think is the time. Other teams that I'm interested in to talk about, let's talk about Memphis. Like, I know that they won the AAC conference tournament last year. They almost beat Houston twice. And they were so close to a Cinderella run of their own. They lose to FAU by 1. Had it been them instead of FAU, then they would have got Fairleigh Dickinson. You can make an argument that they would have been teed up to at least go to the Elite 8. But then in the offseason, I was excited because of Jordan Brown. I looked at him as, the best mid-major big in the transfer portal. They get him, and now he's out. He's not going to play anymore. So I think the expectations in the market kind of overcorrected against Memphis. Since his departure, they're 6-0 straight up with wins at A&M, Clemson, home win over UVA. And David Jones has just finally realized.
David Jones been unreal.
And I watched a lot of him at DePaul and St. John's. Like, he, as a burly, wing, he had some like upside potential, but he was never a shooter. He was a career sub 30% perimeter shooter. Now he's knocking down almost 40% of his threes. He's a difference maker as a defender. He's got 28 steals in the AAC, which is 2nd in the conference. So when you add in the fact that Naquan Tomlin is now in the mix, giving them some real toughness and defensive versatility, like, the sky's the limit for this team. And also, it's going to be a while till they match up with FIU on the schedule, FAU. So the fact is, I think they're just going to keep stacking wins and getting better. So I think this is an interesting team. Certainly surprised me in terms of how well they're playing right now. And just in general, I think at their point as well, Quinterly is doing exactly what he needs to do. He's not playing outside of himself. And I think that's really kind of the final piece, because I love what they have at the forward position, but I needed to see Quinterly play for an extended period and not turn the ball over and be a facilitator, and he's doing it.
Yeah, I'm surprised. David Jones has been extraordinary so far. Yeah. Memphis has surprised me as well, because I was never a Caleb Mills or a Quinterly guy. Like, I was never all in on either one of those guys, but they've played a lot more efficiently than I expected. And Memphis, just with the way that they play and the high level athleticism that they're always going to have, they're always going to be a problem if they get into the tournament. I'll throw out, let's go. I have a couple for disappointing power conference teams, high majors. So I'll throw out some off the radar teams. Let's go with McNeese State, who recently won by double digits at Michigan, won by double digits at VCU earlier this season. They're 11-2. You mentioned Tomlin, Kansas State, now at Memphis. There's this transfer rule where you now are eligible. McNeese State has a guy in CJ Felder, who recently started playing from Florida, but it's been Shahada Wells, who's been ridiculous for them. The TCU transfer, he's been great. This team, look, they can shoot. I don't know if they're going to shoot 42 or whatever, 43% all season, but they're pick and roll. They get great shots.
They don't turn the ball over either.
They don't turn the ball over. They play like this helter-skelter zone trapping style. They give up a lot of threes, but it's working for them. But yeah, this team, number 1 in the nation in turnover margin. Wells at the Wells running the show, playing extremely well. McNeese State, a very dangerous team. And also throw out Indiana State. I mean, Indiana State has one of the, if you want to go watch just like a beautifully run offense, go watch Indiana State. They're second in effective field goal percentage, 8th in 3-point percentage, 6th in 2-point percentage. And it all runs through Robbie Avila, who is like your just a very unique player, 6'10" point forward. This team just runs beautiful, beautiful stuff in whether it's in transition, in a half court. Their defense will probably end up being their downfall. But if this team makes the dance, no one is going to want to play their offense. Schertz has done a tremendous job there. Randall, do you have any thoughts on any of those teams that we mentioned?
Yeah, McNeese State, great call with Will Wade. I mean, you take a coach who was at a high major program and they go to a small major program. A lot of times that will work. McNeese State's super impressive in the win over Michigan. And guys, I will tell you, when I jumped on the Indiana State bandwagon, they played at Bradley and they just pummeled Bradley from start to finish, played really well, 49-30 at the half at Bradley. That is not easy. And Connor Hickman played in that game. So they were ready to rock and roll. But Indiana State lost at Michigan State. I get it, but that will serve them well in the tournament.
Yeah, let's move on to, we'll stay with under the radar teams, well, at least going into last year. And that was Florida Atlantic before they made their magical run. And Florida Atlantic will be a threat again this year. Been a little up and down. They have some like puzzling quad 4 losses, but then they have some tremendous wins. And, you know, with the way they play and the way that they can switch on defense and they're shot makers, they're going to be dangerous again come March. But everyone knows about Florida Atlantic. Who could potentially be this year's Florida Atlantic that doesn't necessarily win it all, but maybe makes a surprise trip to the Final Four? I'll kick things off. I'm going to say New Mexico. This team, they just lost to Colorado State. Unfortunately, House was in foul trouble the whole game. But they haven't been healthy all year. I mean, Mashburn and with the emergence of Dent, and you have Mashburn and House, who haven't really played together at all this season so far, but everyone is back now. They have a bunch of freshmen. I think they have 5 Mountain West freshmen of the week so far that have played well. I like some of the additions they brought in from the portal just as depth guys. But this is the biggest question. But why I think there's upside here. But you have shot makers all over. But if Dent, House, and Mashburn, if Patino can figure out a way for them to work, symbiotically, share the ball, and they're all happy and working efficiently. And look, House only played 8 games. Mashburn's only played 6 games. They've dealt with a number of injuries. But what wins in March, generally speaking, it's guards. And I think with all the freshman contributors, they're only going to get better. I think they're undervalued right now because their backcourt really hasn't played together. But if they can figure it out and all work together, this team is extremely dangerous. And I think come March, they could certainly make a run with their backcourt. Randall, agree or disagree on, I know a couple of years ago, you always had hot takes on New Mexico, whether it was hot or cold. Any love for New Mexico, and who do you got as a potential 2023 FAU?
Yeah, a lot of love for New Mexico. They weren't ready to win the game, guys, at Colorado State. I thought they were. Colorado State got Lake back. I wasn't sure if he was going to play. He did. They actually played well. Josiah Strong also. So they weren't ready for that game, but I agree with you. They have the guards. They have the coach, Nelly Jr. Joseph. They have a schematic here that they could absolutely make a deep run. Richard Pitino's done a good job. My team, guys, and I am not jumping on the bandwagon because I've been talking about them for a while, is UNC Wilmington. I was on Florida Atlantic last year, and I love them. Why? Because it's a veteran team. I love the style that they played on defense. They could pressure the ball, shoot threes, and a coach that I thought was under the radar. And that's what we have with UNC Wilmington here, because I think they have everything they need. And it is not just because they beat Kentucky. I was on them before that. You're looking for a veteran team. You're looking for a team that has experience, that has played before, and that they have camaraderie. And that's what you have with this team with UNC Wilmington. They hit mid-range jumpers, guys. That's the key. The way they went against Kentucky is Kentucky was making their run. They continued to hit those mid-range jumpers. Takeo Siddle is one of the most underrated coaches. They have heavy guards, like you talked about, Stuck. They don't turn the ball over. Number 3 in the country, and they played some good teams at not turning the ball over. But they've had just enough losses here to keep them under people's radar. They lost to App State. App State was fantastic on a neutral, blew them out, no problem. They lost to Arkansas. I watched that game this weekend. They got in heavy foul trouble in that game, but they kept fighting back. I like this team. They're a veteran team. They play well together. They pressure the ball. They have top 20 in minutes continuity, and they make their free throws. So UNC Wilmington, to me, has the same schematic. Underrated coach, shoots well, shot makers, can get to the basket, solid defensively, and doesn't turn the ball over. And they have played big teams like Kentucky, Arkansas. They'll be ready to roll. They get in, they're going to be dangerous, guys.
Yeah, Phillips and Newby, senior late in backcourt that can certainly score. Like to see just like a little uptick defensive efficiency wise, but that's something like that I think is more easily improve. You can more easily improve that than you can, hey, do you have the guards, do you have the coach? So I agree, that's a good under the radar team. The Seahawks. Calabrese, where are you going for this year's potential FAU?
I'm going Dayton. I mean, they got 4 double-digit scorers. They share the ball incredibly well. They're 15th in assist to made field goal percentage in the whole country, and they're 2nd in three-point shooting percentage. So when you look at what they have on the perimeter, they have the goods if the shots are falling to beat anybody in the country. But then you mix in Holmes, who's 30th in NBA efficiency in the entire country as their big, which is a rarity, for a mid-major. He's averaging 18 and 7 with 3 stocks per game. He can step out and knock down a 3 when you need him to. And I still think they're a little bit undervalued because they were in a 25 seconds left at Northwestern. If they had won that game, if they had that on their resume, I think the secret would be out on them. But I still think the Flyers are under the radar here. And the final piece of the puzzle for any deep run, I want a coach that I can trust. I think Anthony Grant as a mid-major coach is a phenomenal, player or coach to tail in situations like that. And I believe if the 2020 NCAA tournament had happened, that would have been a deep run for him. You could argue that they were the best team headed into that tournament. If they go to the Final Four that year, he would have had high major offers and he would have been gone. Instead, Dayton's the beneficiary there. He ends up staying, continues to build this program. I understand that maybe they don't have that superstar guard that you want to hang your hat on. But like I said, with 4 double-digit scorers in their starting lineup, I really like their balance. And I think the A-10 is a little bit better than it was last year. So I think they're going to be battle-tested through the regular season and the A-10 tournament to be able to go in to March Madness with experience playing in close games.
Yeah, and they're going to grind the game down to a halt, ready, lower the variance in a game. The worries that I have for Dayton, because I have been really impressed with their offense, despite the fact that I wrote their point guard play. Who Bennett, I don't know if he's the guy that's going to lead you on a deep run. But last year, Dayton would win games, but they didn't even have a point guard at all for stretches with all of the injuries that they had, and they were doing fine. And yeah, so that's a main concern for me. And then the depth, just the overall depth. If they get in foul trouble, if there's an injury, something like that along the way, which obviously you can't predict, but it's not the deepest team that you're going to run into. But certainly the Flyers have impressed me as well. All right, that is I guess we've done a lot of positive. And this is season long because this is our tip-off episode. Let's go around. We have Randall Rant. We have we need to put Calabrese and a ranting nickname for you that starts with a C. Not pick up with one for me. But any rants for the entire season could be literally, you could go anywhere with this. Randall Rant, throw it to you first.
Yeah, Stuck. Hey, Mick Cronin, why don't you keep your mouth shut, buddy? Okay. The Bruins actually got 4 first-place votes in the Pac-12 preseason poll. They've lost 6 of 7 and 7 of 9, including a 1-point home win over UC Riverside. Congratulations. After the meltdown at Villanova, Cronin took a shot at Eric Dixon in the press conference saying he doesn't rebound. And then he says, well, we knew Tyler Burton, he's from Richmond. So what do you expect? What kind of comment is that? Hey, Mick, you guys can't score. Your defensive metrics aren't even that good. And you're losing despite teams aren't even hitting 70% of their free throws against them. I thought maybe they had gotten things right recently when they ended up playing well and they ended up going up. UCLA had a nice win on the road where they went up against Oregon State. Then they go to Oregon, they lose a close one, but they cover. They come home against Stanford and they lose. Are you going to beat California? Good luck with that. Because after that, you go away to Utah. You have Washington. So Mick Cronin here, why don't you worry about your own team instead of attacking other players? Because things are not right here for UCLA.
Yeah, UCLA would have been, or I was going to mention them if someone else didn't, as one of the most disappointing teams. We know how much they lost from last year's team. And by the way, I don't really follow the NBA, but like whenever I see stat lines like on the bottom line, like Jaime Jaquez is like killing it. Is he like a rookie? Is he going to be like a rookie of the who the rookie of the year?
He's been fantastic, Stuck, and he's scoring. So the question is, could he have been used a little bit better with Mick Cronin at UCLA?
Yeah. And you look at what that UCLA team lost. They're still very good defensively, and they're still going to grind the game down to a halt as Cronin always does. But there is no scoring. I mean, they can't. The offense is absolutely disgusting. They have lost. Let's go back here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're 3-8 over their last 11 games. And by the way, they started off 3-0 with wins over St. Francis, Lafayette, and LIU. Those are bottom 20 teams. They're 3 wins. So they're 3-8 over the last 11. Their 3 wins are against Chaminade, UC Riverside at home by 1. Riverside had a chance to win that game. And Oregon State. They just lost to Stanford at home by 6. They lost to Cal State Northridge at home. It is ugly. This team trying to, in the half court, trying to get a basket is absolutely disgusting. Like, where's the bottom? And like, when do I want to buy them? I don't know, but it's not now because I just don't trust them to score. And they're still too highly rated. There's a team 326 in the country in effective field goal percentage. It is ugly. You just can't shoot. There's no shooters, no shot creators. It's bad. I'm speaking of you know what I'm gonna rant because I made an awful bet the other night. I bet on Maryland against Purdue. Thought that they could do a good job guarding Edey, which they did for the most part. Purdue's offense wasn't great. They made a lot of threes. Maryland stinks. They were in the running for one of the most disappointing teams that I was going to mention. Hit a shot, Maryland. I mean, at any point this year, are you going to make a shot? This team's shooting 27% from 3. I mean, they can't even make a free throw. It's the Maryland offense is their defense has been good, but they're like UCLA, except they didn't lose as much. Their offense wasn't supposed to be this bad. What has happened to Dante Scott? I mean, Jameer Young, he only could do so much, but this offense just across the board is disgusting to watch. And I don't know if they're ever going to figure it out. But yeah, Maryland, I've watched too many Maryland just brickfest so far this season, along with UCLA. So those are 2 good teams to start off the rank. Calories, you want to finish us off?
Well, first thing, Chaminade, the Silver Swords, catching strays here. They're a top 5 basketball team in the state of Hawaii, so no disrespect to them. You guys have inspired me because I thought my rant was a little bit tepid, but I'm going to punch it up a little bit. The AP voters and the coaches poll, they got to get some balls and start ranking mid-majors higher. Like, I'm sick of seeing James Madison stuck at 20 when you have these teams that are clearly flawed in like 15 to 25 range. Like, Gonzaga is not a top 25 team. Get them out of here. How about Grand Canyon in the top 25? They beat San Diego State by 6. They go on the road and beat Liberty by 5. The team's filled with hoopers. Grant Foster and Harrison as a backcourt. They can get to the foul line a ton. Like, they're getting Blackshear back now from injury. Could mean a lot to them this season. He's a 3-point specialist, something that they need. I've had it with the committee, or I should say committee, the voters just being so scared to put these, smaller mid-majors in there. These teams can play. Just watch them. Like, Grand Canyon is a team that when they get to the tournament, if they can win their conference tournament, they're going to be a problem. They could be a second weekend team. And so that's just my frustration, where it's like, we've seen Gonzaga play enough. They're getting by in reputation. They're getting by, like, the Zags and Mark Few are not the team of the last 5 years. Graham Ike, unless he gets a perfect matchup, in the first weekends against a team that can't, defend them on the low post. Like, they're not going anywhere. So why are you constantly afraid to dock them and knock them out of the top 25?
I completely agree. Gonzaga, you just watch them and they're not scary. Like, you used to watch Gonzaga, and if you bet against them, even if you bet on them, you'd be like, here comes a run. But
Nebhard has no confidence as a shooter anymore, and Hickman has not been able to consistently score. So at this point, what are we? More
What's
than
left?
the way into the season, they have nothing left to be able to.
And there's no depth. There's no depth at all. If they lose anybody, they're done. Yeah. But this team I cannot see them making a deep run. I mean, maybe they get to the second weekend with good matchups, but that's it. That's the ceiling for this team. I think they're probably one and done. I'm not impressed with them. Their offense is, they're still going to like beat the shit out of bad teams. So they're like their adjusted efficiency, and they're going to play a bunch of bad teams. So like their adjusted efficiency offensive numbers are still going to be up there. But this team, they're not going to beat really good teams with the way that their offense is constructed right now. That
guys, they don't have they don't have the talent. They're like a Jenga puzzle. These teams like Gonzaga. Steele Venters going out preseason with the knee injury was a killer. He was a sharpshooting wing. He was going to extend the floor. He was going to spread out a little bit for EK inside. They ended up, when they played Gonzaga, that was an easy, UConn rather, that was an easy pick, because if you can guard EK, then they just can't create offense. And that's what Venters was a killer for them. So they're going to struggle.
Yeah. And EK is a really good player, but he's not a guy that's going to just take you to a Final Four and put you on his back against elite competition. Like, come on. So, yeah, the Venters, that was good point there. That just a killer loss. Team does not have any depth. The offense just isn't scary anymore. Before we get to Futures Roundtable, I know we talked about potential FAU, most surprising team, did some rants. We mentioned a lot of teams through the rants and other that we're most disappointed in. Before we get to Futures Roundtable, I don't know if there's any other teams you want to bring up. I'll just throw out UCLA, we talked about, Gonzaga, we just mentioned. I had Maryland. St. Mary's, another team that's offense, has been, almost non-existent at times. This is a team, you watch them in the half court, and you're just like, how are they going to get a good shot? And, watching this team last year, and then let's see, what did they finish last year? Top 50 adjusted offensive efficiency. They're like 120th now. It's a lot of the same guys. Was Logan Johnson that important to them? Because this offense at times, and they're going to grind the game down, and their defense is still really good, but the offense, I did not expect it to be this bad. And then I have to also bring up, there's a lot of West Coast teams, by the way, that I'm disappointed in a ton of West Coast teams. I also have to bring up USC. USC, is Enfield done after this year if they don't turn it around? With this backcourt, Collier, Ellis, you got Bronny James now in the mix, Kobe Johnson. They have much more talent than the way that they've been playing. To lose at home to Long Beach, to lose at home to Irvine by double digits. There's something that's just off with this team. There's no chemistry. There's no continuity. Nothing looks in flow. With this much talent in that backcourt, if USC doesn't make the tournament, Enfield, I think he's out. So I just named off like 8 West Coast teams that I'm disappointed in. No East Coast bias, I promise. I'm up late watching these games. Brando, any other teams you can comment on those, or any other teams that you want to mention for most disappointing?
Yeah, I'm going to change this one, guys. Instead of most disappointing, I'm going to go with a team that I have not been impressed with, that I think is going to continue to disappoint us the entire year. Guys, enough of Creighton, okay? They have no ability to penetrate defenses this year. I have watched them so many times. They rely on the three even more than normal. Last year, they were 68th in percentage of field goal attempts coming from three-point range. 68. This year, they are 5th. 49.2% of their field goal attempts come from three-point range. You have Kalkbrenner inside. I know he's soft, but he should have developed a little bit more. You know what that gets you guys? They're king of the little people. That's extreme variance. They were crushed at UNLV. They could not stop UNLV in that game. Terrible home loss to Villanova sans Justin Moore, and they were 12 of 32 from three-point range, which is pretty decent at Marquette, still lost it. That Elite Eight run last year, guys, very shaky. They beat NC State, who cares? Then they beat Baylor because Nembhard had 30. He's not on the team anymore. Now they played Princeton, and then they couldn't beat San Diego State. I know it's a bad call, but that's an anemic offense. Remember, Matt Bradley had 2 points in that game. They will get a nice record here. So they're going to beat Providence, no Bryce Hopkins, and then DePaul. But for me, Creighton is going to be on fraud alert because they cannot stop teams, and their offense is just passing around the arc and hope Bayer Shireman hits one from the Atlantic to bail them out. So they look good. Their record is good. I don't think they're very good. That's my take on Creighton.
I agree. I think they're the most overrated team in the country. Some people love them and will make a case for them. I don't think they have the guard play. I think they miss Kaluma too. Who brought a lot of intangibles. But look, Trey Alexander's a good player, but Ashworth, Farabello, they could be bullied and they're not going to create in ISO. So yeah, this team's super reliant on the three. And I think that they're just like the sexy team that everyone wants to be good, but I don't think is in the discussion as a legit Final Four team. I think it's...
And Stuck, they are dead last in the country at generating turnovers. So they shoot the three and they can't generate turnovers. That is just not a good match here.
Yep. Galbraith, are you a Creighton believer? And do you want to mention any other most disappointing teams?
Yeah, I mean, I got a ticket on them at 30-1. I may as well light it on fire because I basically agree with what you guys are saying, and I'm kicking myself because honestly, Greg McDermott has this long track record of not being a very good tournament coach. And there's something to be said for the quick turnaround and scouting multiple teams and getting your team positioned to play their best basketball, not just in that first round matchup, but in the round of 32. And with the exception of this deep run, last year into the Elite Eight, a lot of round of 64 and round of 32 exits for him. So I really should have seen it coming, although I think I was kind of swept up in their acquisition in the transfer portal at points. I was like, he's such a good shooter. He's just adding another weapon on the perimeter, but they've just fallen in love with the 3-point shot to the point where they could beat anybody really by 10 points. And they could also lose by 25 points to any good team in the country, the way that they're playing basketball. And the turnovers on the defensive end, I agree. It really limits ways that they can win. Basically it's just coming down to, are they going to hit 12 threes or not? In terms of the team that I'm disappointed in, and this is really just because going through all the advanced metric sites, this team, Ken Palm's got him 20th, shot quality 19th, Torvik 11th, Michigan State. I don't see a top 20 team when I'm watching them play. How much heavy lifting can that Baylor game do for them? Baylor played one exquisitely bad half of basketball. They couldn't shoot in the first 20 minutes. They couldn't stop turning it over. Other than that, where is this elite Michigan State team that the advanced metrics community is pointing to? They lost by 13 at home to Wisconsin. They go to Omaha, they lose by 7. Until I see them dominate and play really well against a quality opponent, I'm still going to view them as a disappointing team this year. I understand that James Madison loss continues to look better as they run the table at this point, but overall, I just don't see it right now. It doesn't mean I won't buy them situationally. And, Izzo will probably have them playing their best basketball by the end of the season. But right now, they're still in the disappointing camp for me.
Yeah, with the top 5 team preseason, I did not see that at all. And, that was, hey, they won a couple games in the tournament. It's Izzo. I don't see it with them as far as a high Final Four ceiling. Any thoughts on Sparty, Randall?
Yeah, I actually like Sparty, guys. It's funny that you say this. I get all of your points. They're very valid. But remember, last year, this was a team that struggled, and they really should have been playing Florida Atlantic if Kansas State didn't go ballistic at MSG in that game. I think I think we can get them low now. They have a strong backcourt. That Izzo wants to get back here to a Final Four. They have pushed up their 3-point percentage to 34%. Guys, that is saying something because they were at 23, 24% for the start of the season. So to me, in this conference, which I think they can easily make a move and do very, very well in, I kind of think they're a buy low right now. I get all of your concerns. They're not making free throws, but the defense is good. They have a great coach, and I think that 3-point shooting is going to come back. And we talk about guards, guys. You're going to find Walker, Akins and AJ Hogard, I think that's as good as you're going to find. So to me, they're a buy low right now. I get your points, and disappointing up to this point, absolutely. But watch out for them, because I think there's value on Michigan State. I think when the dust settles, they could be pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think they're so reliant on Walker having a good game now. Like, they need Walker to hit shots and have a good game. So if he's off, is when you're going to see Michigan State look bad. I think they really do miss Hauser. So they have to just get the rest of the team. If they find a couple guys who are, and they're starting to do this, Holloway's and other guys on the team, they have to get more confident just shooting and do that more consistently, which they've done more recently and looked better, because you need to be able to stretch the floor, and you need to just take some of the onus off of Walker, who, like, early the season was like, can you win the game for us? If not, we're done. All right, well, we've kind of hinted at a few futures. Fortunately, the one team I didn't want to see. Now, look, unless both of you vote for the team, then it can't really win. I guess that's my trump card here. And I was afraid of Creighton, but it sounds like Creighton won't be nominated here, and Randall won't vote for them, and I won't vote for them. So, Calabrese, hopefully you didn't bring Creighton to the table.
I did not. Yeah, no problem.
I'd be shooting it down before you even brought it up. But this, for those new here, I'm kind of hinted at this earlier in the show. Everyone brings one future each week. Make your case. We'll go around, and at the same time, we'll all hold up a finger and see what we vote on for 1, 2, or 3. So for the first future option this week, Calabrese, I will throw it to you for your non-Creighton pick.
I am surprised that the Baylor Bears are still 30-1 on the market. I like this tournament. This is breaking no news. Is guard dominated, and I trust Ray J. Dennis. I love what I've seen from Jacoby Walter. Like, his ceiling, he can give you 25, 30 points against quality competition. They're the top 3-point shooting team in America, and when they're following, no one's stopping this offense. They're top in shooting efficiency. But really, I think when I'm focusing in on this, the reason why I'm buying them is their improved play on defense. No one's going to confuse them with a stopper top 25 defense, but like, they're inching closer to the top 70. Yves Missi in the middle is a super efficient scorer. When you look at some of his box scores, he's like 6 for 6, 8 for 8. Like, he only takes those high percentage shots, but he's the key piece on the interior defensively. He gives them a little bit more toughness, where in recent years, it's been that matador defense. You get in the lane, you get a bucket against Baylor. If he can stay out of foul trouble, they can really make teams have to earn it. Working in the half court, taking difficult contested shots. And I love Drew as a head coach. So to get him at 30-1, I think this is a great building block future in terms of our portfolio. We can get more aggressive, take some, deeper shots, later in the season. But I think starting with Baylor before Big 12 play gets started in earnest, I think that's the way to go.
My only concern with Baylor would be their defense. I still don't fully trust their defense to hold its own for a deep run. Now, that could change, and we've seen Drew make some schematic changes, go with some different looks, both in season and later in the season, changing it up. And then there's probably they're going to be one of the best shooting teams in the country, but when does, like, the precipitous regression come? Does it come in the tournament? Like, they're sitting at 44% from 3. And then, in the second round against an 11 seed, they go 3 of 26 from 3 and get bounced. Defense would be my biggest concern there, but Baylor's certainly a worthy first candidate. Randall, feel free to share thoughts on Baylor if you feel inclined to do so. And then what is your first futures pick?
It's a good call, Mike. The question is going to be, can Jacoby Walter sort of get that consistency? He was fantastic earlier in the season, really played well. Then he slowed down a little bit, had a big game against Cornell. So he has back-to-back games, 26 and 23 points. I think they're relying on him. I think Drew needs a player who's going to step up like that. But your point is well taken. They're scalding hot right now. The defense definitely has to get better. Guys, I'm looking for a team. I wanted to come in here saying Kentucky, but I don't like their value. I think it's too low right now for me to get into it. So I'm going to go a team that they destroyed earlier this year, and that's Miami of Florida. They are 11-2. They got blitzed by an underrated Colorado team, lost 90-63. That threw people off their set. Nigel Pack was out for a couple games, came back, and they drilled Clemson. The phonies that Clemson are, they took care of them even without Wooga Poplar, who was out with an injury. So they're battling through some things, got blown out of Kentucky, blown out on neutral against Colorado. So we have a good number here. We have good value. But what have they done? They pounded Stonehill in North Florida. I know, not impressive, but they beat them by 40. And that's part of being a great team, is you have to beat teams that you're supposed to beat impressively. Now they end up having Pack back. Poplar is going to come back, and they just drilled Clemson and took care of them 95-82. They have Wake Forest, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Florida State, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh. Stop me when I get to a team that Miami is going to lose to there, guys. I think it's a value play for me. I like Miami. They've been there last year. They make their free throws. Great coach in Larinaga. It's a value play, plus 1,400 to make the Final Four.
Yeah, don't mind that. I mean, I would say maybe, yeah, they could lose at Wake. And then we'll see Poplar's status. But then, yeah, Louisville, big favorites. Virginia Tech probably win that game. Big favorites over Florida State. At Syracuse, at Notre Dame, home against Pitt, at NC State, home against Virginia Tech, at Virginia, home against North Carolina. Like, there's a lot of winnable games coming up for Miami. Defense still a bit of a concern. They're I just don't trust them fully to be locked in on that end. They have the guard play. You have O'Meara, you have the coaching. They've been lucky in 3-point defense, but certainly a team that could make a run, and I could definitely see it. Do you have any thoughts on Miami, Cowboys, you want to add in?
Yeah, I mean, it has all the ingredients for a deep run. It has a backcourt I trust. Hopefully they get healthy, and that's not a concern at all. They have a head coach who I absolutely trust in tournament time. And yes, O'Meara has to do a lot of the heavy lifting on the glass and, defensively staying out of foul trouble, but they did it last year. So it's not like I have to squint all that much to see a Final Four run coming. And I agree with the number. It's just teaming with value right now. And where is it going to go? To your point, Mike, like, it has to go down. They're not going to be handing out 20-1s on the Canes to go to the Final Four. So if I were to get into the Miami wagon here, now's the time.
All right, I will go last. I really don't know how you guys are going to feel about this one, which makes it fun. But I'm going to go with I had a couple, but I'm going to go Texas A&M. 50-1 to win the national title. So what makes me intrigued by Texas A&M? Well, one, they can offensive rebound their misses. So when they're not making shots, which they usually don't, then they're still going to be a really efficient offense. If they're making their shots, if they're making their threes, this offense is deadly. We know they're going to have the scramble defense. They're going to do all the little things under Buzz Williams. But there's a couple things that I really want to call out here. They haven't really been fully healthy all season. You had, games without Coleman. You had Radford hurt. You had a couple other guys that were out earlier this season. Now you're kind of getting the full strength Texas A&M, but it's Wade Taylor. I want a guard who I think is the best finisher in college basketball. If he's on, he can carry me to a Final Four. I mean, what he did against Houston, which is on pace to be the most efficient defense in the history of college basketball, he's almost brought them back from 20 down. Being down 20 to Houston is being down like 50 to any other team. He dropped 34, went completely bonkers. But this team, a year more experienced, very experienced team from last year. I thought they had flaws last year. They fixed some of them, but well coached. You have Wade Taylor, Coleman in the middle. They're now getting healthier. I think this team could be super problematic with Taylor just spearheading it. Like, I cannot see them getting blown out by anybody. I don't care who you put them up against in March. They're going to be right there. Like a 1 seed would be a nightmare to see Texas A&M in the second round, or a 2 seed. So I'm going to go with the Aggies 50-1. with buzz, but most importantly, it's Wade Taylor. Randall, any thoughts on buying Texas A&M now? Who they have LSU at home this weekend, and they're at Auburn, home against Kentucky, at Arkansas.
That is such a great call, because Wade Taylor, guys, could do a Jordan Crawford of Xavier years ago, NCAA tournament situation. I could easily see it. Buzz is a great coach. Guys, they lost to Florida Atlantic, but they were missing players in that game. Virginia, down screen, back screen, whatever. I like that path. And by the way, Stuck, that was
that Virginia game, by the way, they went Friday, November 17th play. They went November 23rd. They played neutral, 24th neutral, 26th neutral. Played at Virginia. It was like their fourth game in 5 days. Radford didn't play. A couple of their guys were banged up. So I think that's hurting their analytical profile. Terrible spot, and they've had injuries. Yet their offense still grades out extremely well.
No, and I love it. And I have to tell you guys, that was a glorious cover against Houston, because they were dead and buried.
I thought that was over. Yep. That was ridiculous.
He brought them back. I like it, Stuck. It's so under the radar. It's great value. I'd probably like it better for the Final Four, but I give you credit for going for national title. I like it.
Yeah, let's go. Look, I'll change it. Let's go Texas A&M 12-1 to make the Final Four. So our three options, you're going to hold up a finger when I say it, our three options, or you can write it down, whatever you want to do. Our three options: number one, Baylor. What's the price that's out there, Mike? You said
30-1 to win the Natty.
Baylor 30-1. Number two, Miami to make the Final Four, 14-1. And number three, Texas A&M 12-1 to make the Final Four. Generally speaking, the way these work, early in the season, people go with their own bets. You have the most conviction, and then later, someone comes with a really good case, and everyone's like, you know what, that's the right one. So we'll see if everyone decides to go with their own or somewhere else. So on the count of three, hold up. 1 for Baylor, 2 for Miami, 3 for Texas A&M. 3, 2, 1, go. 3 wins. I convinced Randall to come over to the dark side. Because you went to Final
Four. That's why I gave it to you. You got it. Yep.
Yeah, so we kind of had a hybrid pick here. So Wade Taylor to make the Final Four. I love it. 12-1. I will be betting that tonight myself. That'll be our first investment in our futures portfolio. But I think we're gonna have a strong one. Those are all three worthy options that I think all of teams that could make deep runs. And Miami and Baylor might come back up here at some point, but good stuff there. Let's get to what everyone mostly cares about, and that's the weekend coming up. We're going to do rapid fire, go around the horn, give one bet each, and then just keep going until you're out. If you don't have any more left, just say it. I'll kick things off. I'm going to go Providence. Even I assume Bryce Hopkins is going to be out. I didn't even see an update on him today.
Yeah, he's done. He's done for the year.
Done for the year?
Yeah.
All right. So that sucks for Providence, but I like it even more for this spot. It's, you're off a loss. It's your first game without your star player. So I think you're probably going to get an inflated number here. No one's going to want to back Providence after Hopkins got hurt, but there's sarcasm. That happens. Everyone else focused up, but it's also a really good matchup for Providence. Providence, what do? They switch everything. They drop Adoro. They take away the rim with Adoro. They take away the three. Okay, so what does that force teams into? Isolation. What can Creighton not do on offense? Creighton isolation. Also, Creighton does not force any turnovers, which we talked about, and that's kind of the bugaboo of Providence's offense. I think their ball movement could actually be a little better for a game or two without Hopkins here, and I think this is just a really good matchup for the Providence defense, which takes away what Creighton wants to do. So, yeah, I think I'm expecting an inspired effort from Providence here, the game after losing Hopkins off the loss. And Randall, you and I already talked about it. We think that Creighton is overrated, and I think they are in the market. So, Randall, let me throw it to you. Where are you going for your first look?
Wonderful chance, guys, to fade Hubert Davis, and we're going to do so. Give me Clemson at home against North Carolina, coming off a loss to Miami. North Carolina was right to lose to Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh, of course, does what they do with just an abysmal 5 of 29 from 3-point range. Look, RJ Davis is great. Harrison Ingram has come back to earth a little bit, and Armando Bacot can be pushed around. They are not getting better. I don't trust Hubert here. I'm not a big Clemson guy, but they are shooting well. They're great on the defensive boards. They make their free throws, and they're great at defending the interior here. So I like Clemson in a bounce back spot. I love that Clemson lost the game to Miami. I think you get a good focused team here. North Carolina's won 3 in a row. They beat Oklahoma on a semi-home, which was in North Carolina, but they beat Charleston Southern. Nobody cares. And the Pittsburgh game, they were ripe. I know it's a 13-point loss, but I watched that but I watched that game. Clemson bounce back spot against Hubert and North Carolina, who I think is just going to still struggle against the spread.
I agree. I had this one circled. I didn't think you were going to agree because you trashed Clemson earlier in the show. But yeah, I think coaching advantage now here for Clemson. Off an embarrassing, bad loss. They also got embarrassed last year by North Carolina on the road. Rivalry game, had this one circled. I agree on that North Carolina. I watched that whole game. Pitt missed. Hinson couldn't hit the backside of the barn.
2 of 11 stuck from 3-point range. Oh,
he's so streaky. But yeah, they were missing everything possible. The UNC transition defense has been good, but if you actually look, Clemson's half-court offense has been much more efficient. So it actually works in their favor if they're operating in the half-court through PJ Hall. I could see Bacot getting the foul trouble here. Clemson is going to get open looks against this UNC defense, and they have plenty of capable shooters. The Clemson defense, like their perimeter defense, is very shaky against guys who can create off the bounce. So that's going to be a problem against Davis, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Clemson's defense also been extremely unlucky, owed massive amounts of regression. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a flip in UNC, that UNC is the team that misses a ton of shots here. So I agree. We'll see if North Carolina State could use some depth pieces. Hemingway, Jack Clark, they've been out for a bunch. We'll see if they get either one of those guys back. But regardless, I like Clemson in this spot as well. That was one of the ones I had circled. Calabrese, what do you want to throw in here?
Yeah, I'll rubber stamp the Clemson play. That's all three of us on the same side. I'm going to go to the O-Dome. I'll lay up to 3 with the Gators. I know I was high on UF in the preseason. I'm even more encouraged by what I'm seeing at this point. They have 4 guards who are averaging 11 or more per night. Tyrese Samuel, arguably one of the biggest home runs out of the portal, year over year. Micah Haglinton, if he can avoid foul trouble, I think he's the difference here, because this is a little nugget from Kyle Tucker over the Athletic, I should say. Kentucky went from number 1 in offensive rebounding percentage and number 2 in rebound margin last year to 232 and 176th in those categories. And Coach Cal has said it over and over again, rebounding is a part of defense. And the fact that Illinois State just grabbed 24 offensive boards against UK, it's a huge vulnerability. I like what Florida can do offensively with so many dynamic scorers. I think, basically on a calendar year, I like to pick 1 or 2 spots at the O-Dome and play the Gators. Like I said, I'd lay up to 3 here. I think Kentucky is a dangerous team. I think they're deserving of their national ranking, but they still have these vulnerabilities. And Trey Mitchell has to do so much on the glass for them, and he has been a force in the last 2 to 3 games. But I think he's going to run into some quality bigs. And like I said, if they can stay out of foul trouble, the UF front court, then I think they're going to get this done and get a quality win against Kentucky.
I agree. This is another one I had circled here that I was going to mention. So we're all on the same page so far. This UK team's really impressed me. To my Cats, I think that they're going to be super dangerous come March. They're ahead of the curve with all their freshmen where I thought they'll be, but it's still a young team. They played 1 true road game against the corpse of Louisville. And I think this Florida team is better than their metrics. They haven't been at full strength all year. They now are there. There's a coaching mismatch. Love Cal, but coaching mismatch here in favor of Florida. UK is not going to keep shooting the way that they have been. So there's some regression coming there. And Florida's defense has some positive shooting regression coming. So double-edged sword. Kentucky, 98th percentile transition percentages. So they get out in transition as much as anyone in the country. And they are elite when they do. But Florida, 4th percentile in transition opportunities allowed, and elite in defending transition. That's huge against Kentucky. Florida also wants to run, but they're significantly more efficient in the half court. And Kentucky does a good job of preventing transition. So that works in Florida's favor. I think in the half court, Florida can exploit Kentucky in pick and roll. in the posts, which have been there's been some vulnerabilities there for Kentucky. Love this spot for Florida. I think they get it done at home. Cowboys talk. Randall, I'll go to you. Do you agree with that one? And you want to throw in anything else?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the regression is coming for Kentucky. I really like Kentucky this year, but this is the exact spot, like you guys said, where the regression monster will eat.
I'm going to throw in, let's give a shout out. I just did the final college football podcast of the season with Colin Wilson. So I'll throw him some love. I'm looking for a decent number with Arkansas here. I think Ken Baum predicts at 5. I'd love to get 5 in this spot. This Auburn team's going to be dangerous just with the way they play, the talent that they have with Broom in the middle, their perimeter talent. But they played one true road game all year. They've lost at App State. And Auburn's wins don't look as good as we thought early in the year. Notre Dame. By the way, how did Notre Dame get blown up by 20 at home to Citadel? I still don't know how that happened. Virginia Tech, Indiana, and USC, right? Teams that have been worse than many thought. I think this is also the peak of the market on Auburn. Analytically, if you look at their metrics, I don't think they're going to go much higher. And I think the opposite's true for Arkansas. There's some flaws in this team, but they've had an underwhelming start. I think they're a bit undervalued because they're not fully healthy. You have Menafield now in the lineup, who I think dropped 30 plus the other week. You have Jalen Graham back. Even Mark missed he missed a game. Brazil was banged up. So this team's now fully healthy. Bud Walton will be electric for this game, and it'll matter. Why? Number one, home court. It means some in college basketball, and especially in conference play at a place like Bud Walton, which has one of the better home court advantages. But these two teams, what do they both do? They both are going to foul a lot, and they both draw fouls. So the refs come into play. I think the whistle will favor Arkansas in a game where you're probably going to get a lot of fouls. So wouldn't be surprised to see Auburn get into foul trouble here. I think Arkansas wins this game. I think this is a good buy low spot on the Hogs. Randall, got anything else?
Yeah, you had that one, took that one from me here. So I'll go to a different one. Guys, how about Bradley at home? They are finally healthy. Connor Hickman's back. He dropped, I think, 26, 28 points in the win over Valpo. They are 1-2 now in the Missouri Valley. Brian Wardle's always tough at home. Last 3 years, guys, within the conference, Bradley 15-5 per Bet Labs against the spread. I put that whole gif out on X, what they're like at home. They are tough. They lost to Indiana State. Now they are healthy. Here comes Missouri State. Very disappointing loss by Missouri State against Northern Iowa here. So I like Bradley on a Saturday to bounce back and get back to doing what Bradley does at home here. This is a team that they're playing in Missouri State that struggles on offense. Bradley can shoot it. Bradley can great at defending inside the arc, and they usually cover at home. So how about Bradley to get right here and get back on track here in the Missouri Valley?
Yeah, home Bradley is a wagon. Calvary, anything else you want to throw in?
I would love it if I could get 6 with Indiana at home against Ohio State. Like, the question is, can Ware get any help? Because at this point, Xavier Johnson is back from a foot injury. He looked rusty, and that's putting it lightly, in his first game back. I think he only played 13 minutes. And the Buckeyes are 27th in opposition shooting efficiency. And even though Ohio State keeps winning, they're just not covering. They're 2-5 against the spread in the last 7. They couldn't cover against West Virginia on neutral floor in Cleveland, or against Rutgers as an 8-point home favorite. So I'm inclined to take the points, but this is really dependent. Like, 5 is kind of my cutoff line. Like I said, I'd love to get to the full 2 possessions here and hope that some Hoosiers around Ware can knock down some shots, because he's playing at an all Big Ten level. And the fact that he came back, from injury himself and looks totally fine, no worse for the Ware. I think the Hoosiers could be a live dog here at the right number.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll get that number, but you would hope. I had Indiana circled as well. You could play through the post against Ohio State. There's some shooting regression that metrics that favor Indiana here, and you would just hope that Xavier Johnson looks. I mean, you would hope that he can't look any worse, but it's a second game back, right? To kind of shook up, and they need him to kind of penetrate and create. So yeah, I had Indiana desperation spot at home against Ohio State. I'll throw out. Let's see, Utah State, Colorado State. I'm really looking forward to this game. I'll be looking for Utah State. Great Sabor. I love watching him play in the post. I think they could take advantage of Colorado State in the interior. I also throw out Illinois State. Illinois State, this is my shooting regression game of the weekend. They're off 2 embarrassing losses. They're back home against Southern Illinois. This is I mean, the regression screams off the page. Illinois State is shooting 28% from three. Now, some teams, that's just what they're going to shoot. They have bad shooters. But Illinois State, if you look at the profile of their shooters, they should be much better. They should be around 32, 33%. They're 2 percentile on unguarded jumpers, which they're getting in the 90th percentile. So they are getting tons of open jumpers, and they're missing every single one. Meanwhile, Southern Illinois, their defense, 99th percentile on unguarded jumpers. So everyone has been missing every wide open jumper against Southern Illinois. They are teams are only shooting 25.5% from three against Southern Illinois, even though they lost their best defender, Lance Jones, from last year. Southern Illinois also plays slow, which plays into Illinois State's hands. They're horrible in transition defense. Xavier Johnson is a monster. I'll give him that for Southern Illinois. But I think this is a good buy spot for Illinois State. And, well, before I get my last one, do you guys have anything left? You got a close?
One left for me, Stuck. That's it. I don't like Loyola Marymount. They rely on the three-pointers so much, and now they don't have Justice Hill for a couple more weeks because of a broken hand. I don't like them against Santa Clara tonight, and I really don't like them against St. Mary's on a short turnaround, even though they're home against St. Mary's on Saturday. Whatever that number is, maybe it's 5 somewhere in there. I think St. Mary's wins that easily. They defend well inside the arc. Loyola Marymount last year was generating a ton of their points, 30% in home games from three-point range. That is not going to happen this year. Randy Bennett greater than Stan Johnson. So I like St. Mary's on the road. As soon as that number comes out against the Lions, I'm going to grab it.
Rob, you got anything left?
Yeah, one more. I'm hoping, I brought up Baylor before. I'm hoping, the Michigan State and Duke losses can give a little bit of extra value here. I'd lay up to 5 in Stillwater. I know it's a difficult place to go in and play and cover, but shot quality ranks the Pokes 275th on the offensive end. Small and Thompson, I just don't trust them if this turns into an up and down game to be able to score enough to keep pace with the Bears. I understand that they have a top 30 defense, but I think this is a decent number if you get it in that 4.5, 5 range for them to just shoot their way past, the Pokes in this one. So I'll go with the Bears in the Big 12 battle.
All right, I'll finish things off. I'm going to go St. John's at Villanova. Patino's recently made a schematic change. My guy, Jordan Majescu, he at Jor Cubs Dan on Twitter does some really good stuff. College basketball, check him out if you haven't. He called this the most important schematic development of the season. Patino's gone to he's made a change on defense, and he's gone to his matchup zone and then kind of molding into man as the shot clock wears down, and it is looked tremendous. I think it can give Villanova a ton of problems. Here's the problem with Villanova games. They're going to shoot a ton of threes. They're going to give a lot of threes. There's a lot of 3-point variance, but this is a tough schematic change that Patino's made to face on a quick turnaround. Villanova just survived Xavier by 1 point at home. They've been really inconsistent. I haven't really been impressed with them this season. They have some bad losses. They're also not an elite offensive rebounding team, which is important for St. John's against their matchup zone that kind of morphs into more man now towards the end of the shot clock, depending on where the offense is on the court. And Villanova won't turn over St. John's. That's key, because that's kind of where St. John's can get into troubles when they start coughing up the ball. I think the St. John's team headed in the they're going to start trending upward. I like what Patino's doing here. Big coaching mismatch here. And Johnny's usually play Nova historically pretty close. Randall, you agree with this one?
Completely agree. Sizzle, sizzle, guys. Kyle Neptune's seat is getting hot. I love this pick.
All right, Tank, that'll do it for us. Randall, for those that aren't longtime listeners, that are fairly new to the podcast, where can they find you, or feel free to plug anything you want here?
Yeah, at FTN, guys, Chief Content Officer at over FTN. We got our models with Frank Brank or Scalding Hot. Things are really rolling here, but glad to be back with the action crew. But join us over at FTN Fantasy, everything under one site, really doing some great things you'll love over there.
Yeah, and do I have here? Yeah, still at Randall Rant on Twitter. So make sure you check him out there for all things going on, and he'll be with us each and every Thursday night episode from now through the end of the tournament, which I cannot wait for. But thanks, gentlemen, for kicking off this tip-off episode. Looking forward to chopping it up with both of you gentlemen all season. Good luck this weekend. Enjoy your weekends. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Thanks to our producers in the back end. Make sure you subscribe, unsubscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy, leave 5-star review. I'll do a bunch of giveaways throughout the season, so say whatever you want. In the future, if you feel obliged, maybe we'll talk about it. But thanks for tuning in. We will be back on Monday afternoon. Myself, Greg, and Mike. We will preview a conference. We'll pick a conference each week. We'll talk about the weekend and preview Monday night college basketball. But good luck on all of your wagers this weekend, and we'll see you then. Cheers.